The phone rang with an unfamiliar number from Vermont. I almost declined it when something made me answer. The voice on the other end struck me like a physical blow. My mother calling after 5 years of complete silence. Her tone was the same, controlled, slightly condescending one I remembered. "Sylvia, there's a family reunion next month. Your father and I think it's time you came. You've proven yourself now." I gripped the phone tighter as she mentioned Amanda and her recent promotion, her new house in the suburbs. Despite my own corner office and the marketing director title I had worked so hard for, I felt myself shrinking. The familiar inadequacy washed over me as I contemplated whether to step back into the lion's den. Growing up as the younger sister of Amanda Miller was like living in perpetual shadow. While most parents hang their children's artwork on the refrigerator with equal pride, my mother had a different system. Amanda's perfect test scores, certificates, and awards dominated the kitchen bulletin board. My drawings and B+ papers somehow never made the cut. "If you applied yourself like your sister," became the soundtrack of my childhood. Amanda was 4 years older, unfailingly polite straight-A student, and seemingly perfect in every way that mattered to our mother. She played piano beautifully while I quit after 3 lessons. She was neat and organized, while my room looked like a tornado hit it. She wore what mother selected without complaint, while I fought for jeans instead of dresses. By the time I reached high school, the pattern was set in stone. Amanda was the golden child, and I was the disappointment. Dad worked long hours at his dental practice, coming home too tired to intervene in the family dynamics. He'd ruffle my hair affectionately and ask about my day. But when mother began her comparisons, he'd suddenly become very interested in the newspaper. His silence felt like agreement. "Your sister got a full scholarship to medical school," mother announced at my college graduation lunch, barely acknowledging my marketing degree. "Sylvia has chosen a more creative path," she told the server, with a tight smile that suggested creative was synonymous with irresponsible. I remember staring at my untouched cake, feeling the familiar burn of shame as she continued. "Of course we're hoping she finds something stable. Not everyone can be an Amanda." My father studied his coffee cup while Amanda looked uncomfortable, but said nothing. The final breaking point came 5 years ago at Christmas dinner. I had just gone through a painful breakup with my boyfriend of 2 years, while Amanda had recently gotten engaged to a neurosurgeon she met in residency. "Well, if you hadn't been so focused on your career, maybe you could have made more effort with Ryan," my mother said loudly enough for the entire extended family to hear. "Amanda managed to become chief resident and plan a June wedding. It's about priorities, dear." I looked around the table at my aunts and uncles, some looking embarrassed, others nodding in agreement with mother. Dad stared at his plate. Amanda twisted her enormous engagement ring and offered a weak mom stop, but it was too late. I stood up, napkin falling to the floor. "I'm done," I said quietly. "I'm done trying to be enough for you." That night I packed my car and drove back to Chicago. I blocked my mother's number, limited contact with my father to occasional texts, checking on his health, and cut ties with extended family, except for my cousin Taylor, who had always been kind to me. Over the next 5 years, I built a life I was proud of. I worked my way up to senior marketing director at one of Chicago's top advertising firms. I bought a condo overlooking Lake Michigan. I formed deep friendships with people who valued me exactly as I was. I started therapy with Dr. Fisher to work through the years of emotional neglect. I dated, though nothing serious had materialized yet. I was finally at peace with who I was and the life I had chosen. Then came the phone call that threatened to unravel everything. After hanging up with my mother, I immediately called my best friend Jenna. She actually said, "You've proven yourself now," Jenna asked incredulously. "Like you were on some 5-year probation." "Classic mom," I confirmed, pacing around my kitchen. Should I even go? Part of me wants to tell her exactly where she can stick her invitation. "What does Dr. Fisher say?" "I have an appointment tomorrow, but I'm pretty sure she'll say it's my decision and ask how I feel about it." I sighed. Jenna laughed. "Well, before you decide, check out Amanda's Instagram." Curious, I pulled up my sister's perfectly curated social media. Amanda rarely posted anything personal, preferring professional achievements and carefully posed photos. but scrolling through recent pictures, I noticed something. The posed smiles with her husband looked strained. There were cryptic captions about challenges and keeping faith during difficult times. Most tellingly, she'd posted an article about dealing with professional disappointment. "Wait is perfect." "Amanda struggling," I whispered. "According to my cousin who works at the same hospital, she got passed over for department head, and there are rumors her marriage isn't as picture perfect as Mom likes to pretend," Jenna said. This revelation shifted something in me. I'd always seen Amanda as complicit in Mother's comparison game, happy to be the golden standard against which I was measured and found wanting. But what if she was trapped in her own version of the same prison? After talking with Dr. Fisher the next day, I made my decision. I would attend the reunion with clear boundaries and a plan. I would go as the accomplished woman I had become, not as the insecure daughter seeking approval. I would stay at a hotel, drive my own car, and leave if the situation became toxic. Remember, Dr. Fisher said, "You're not responsible for their reactions, only for your own behavior. You've done the work. Trust yourself." What I didn't tell Dr. Fisher was the other reason I decided to go. For the first time, I was curious about Amanda. Not as the perfect sister, but as a possibly struggling human being who might need an ally as much as I once did. The reunion was 3 weeks away, giving me time to prepare emotionally and practically. I shopped for a new outfit, selecting a sleek blue dress that projected confidence and success. I scheduled a haircut and highlights, splurging on the premium salon downtown rather than my usual place. I rehearsed responses to potential criticisms and probing questions about my personal life. Yes, I'm still single. I'm focusing on quality over rushing into something that isn't right. I practiced saying in my bathroom mirror, trying to sound confident rather than defensive. Everything was proceeding according to plan until my father texted me. "Looking forward to seeing you, honey. Are you bringing anyone with you?" The question sent an unexpected wave of anxiety through me. I knew what it really meant. Will you be arriving alone again? Confirming Mother's prediction that your career focus would leave you without a partner. I had been so focused on preparing for Mother's criticisms about my career and life choices that I hadn't fully processed how my single status would be perceived. I texted back a simple "coming solo, Dad," and tried to ignore the knot forming in my stomach. I reminded myself that my worth wasn't determined by relationship status, that many of my married friends envied my freedom, that I had chosen to wait for the right partner rather than settling. Still, I called Dr. Fisher for an emergency session. "Your reaction is completely normal," she assured me. "You're anticipating criticism about a sensitive topic. But remember, Sylvia, you've done the work to recognize that your mother's metrics of success aren't the only valid ones." We spent the hour developing concrete strategies, taking breaks when feeling overwhelmed, having a friend on standby for support texts, preparing specific topics to redirect conversations, and most importantly, remembering I could leave at any time. I felt centered again until my mother called the next day. "Sylvia, I'm just calling to make sure you're actually coming. Your father mentioned you confirmed, but you know how he misunderstands things." "Yes, Mom, I'll be there," I replied, trying to keep my voice neutral. "Good. Wear something nice, will you? Amanda always looks so put together at these things. And bring that artichoke dip you used to make. The one time everyone actually liked something you cooked." She laughed as though she'd made a harmless joke. I felt my jaw tighten. 5 minutes into a conversation and she'd already managed to slip in a comparison to Amanda and a criticism of me. "Actually, I'll be coming directly from work, so I won't have time to make anything," I lied, refusing to jump through hoops. "Well, at least wear something professional. The Johnsons will be there, and their son Scott is recently divorced, very successful in finance." Her meaning couldn't have been clearer if she'd written it in neon lights. I was formulating a response when my other line beeped. "Mom, I've got to go. Work call," I said, quickly grateful for the excuse to end the conversation. But it wasn't work. It was my cousin Taylor. "Sylvia, I'm so glad you're coming to the reunion," she said warmly. "It's been way too long." Taylor had always been my favorite relative, 3 years older than me, and the only family member who seemed to see through my mother's manipulations. She had moved to California years ago, and I was surprised she was making the trip back for a simple family gathering. "Actually, I wanted to give you a heads up," she continued, her voice dropping slightly. "I'm not sure if Aunt Diane told you, but this isn't just a regular reunion." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" "It's partially to celebrate Amanda's pregnancy. She's finally expecting after trying for over a year." The news hit me like a bucket of cold water. Not because I wasn't happy for my sister, but because my mother had deliberately withheld this information, ensuring I'd be blindsided at the event. "There's something else," Taylor said hesitantly. "Aunt Diane has been telling everyone that you're coming back to apologize for how you left 5 years ago. She's positioning this as you finally admitting you were wrong and wanting to make amends with the family." I nearly dropped the phone. "She's what?" "I thought you should know before you arrived. Everyone's expecting some sort of prodigal daughter moment. I told Mom that didn't sound right, but you know how Aunt Diane can spin things." After hanging up, I sat on my couch in stunned silence. My mother hadn't invited me because I'd proven myself. She'd invited me to be a supporting character in Amanda's moment, and to publicly humble myself before the family. She wanted me to confirm her narrative that I had been wrong to leave, wrong to build my own life, wrong to reject her vision of who I should be. For a moment, I considered canceling. Then anger replaced shock. This was exactly the manipulation that had driven me away in the first place. I wouldn't give her the satisfaction of running away again. But I also wouldn't play the role she had scripted for me. I opened my laptop and began making adjustments to my plan. If Mother wanted a show, I'd give her one, just not the one she was expecting. The drive from Chicago to our small Vermont town took almost 14 hours. I could have flown, but I wanted the control of having my own car and escape route if necessary. As I crossed state lines, familiar landmarks began to appear, each one increasing the tension in my shoulders. The general store where I'd bought penny candy as a child. The high school where I'd always been Amanda Miller's little sister to the teachers. The park where Mother had once loudly criticized my posture during a family picnic, causing nearby parents to stare. I checked into the Maple Valley Inn rather than staying at my parents' house. The receptionist recognized me. In small towns, everyone knows everyone, but thankfully didn't ask prying questions. I unpacked methodically, hanging my clothes to prevent wrinkles, arranging my toiletries with precision. The ritual calmed me. I had arranged to meet Taylor for coffee the morning before the reunion. The local cafe had been renovated since I'd left, now sporting exposed brick and artisanal blends that seemed transplanted from a Chicago neighborhood. Taylor hugged me tightly when she arrived. "You look amazing," she said, studying me. "City life agrees with you." "Thanks for the warning about tomorrow," I said after we'd ordered. "Have you seen Amanda yet?" Taylor stirred her coffee thoughtfully. "Yesterday. She's different than I expected." "Different how?" "Stressed. Trying to hide it, of course, in that Amanda way." "Did you know she's had 2 miscarriages before this pregnancy?" I shook my head, a pang of sympathy surprising me. My perfect sister struggling with something so fundamentally human. "Aunt Diane doesn't talk about it," Taylor continued. "Just keeps focusing on how this pregnancy will finally give her the grandchild she deserves." She rolled her eyes. "Amanda's almost 13 weeks along, but she seems terrified rather than excited." "And her marriage?" I asked, remembering the strained social media photos. "Mark works constantly. 3 canceled vacations in the last year due to surgical emergencies. Classic surgeon husband." Taylor lowered her voice. "And between us, Amanda was devastated about not getting the department head position. She'd been working toward it for years." I absorbed this information, trying to reconcile it with the image of my untouchable, perfect sister. "Does she know what Mom's been saying about me coming to apologize?" Taylor grimaced. "I tried to bring it up, but she changed the subject. You know how she avoids conflict." Later that afternoon, I drove to my parents' house, deliberately arriving 30 minutes after the time Mother had specified. The driveway was already lined with cars. I checked my appearance one last time in the rearview mirror, professional but not trying too hard, and walked up the familiar front path. Nothing had changed about the colonial-style house my parents had lived in for 30 years. The garden was still meticulously maintained, the trim freshly painted, the brass knocker polished to a shine. Inside would be photos documenting Amanda's journey from adorable toddler to accomplished doctor, while my milestones were notably absent. My mother opened the door before I could knock, giving me a critical once-over. "Sylvia, you're late. Everyone's already here." Her eyes swept from my hair to my shoes. "At least you dressed appropriately." "No, hello. No, it's good to see you. Just immediate criticism." My father appeared behind her, his face lighting up. "There's my girl." He moved past Mother to give me an awkward hug. He had more gray hair than I remembered, and his shoulders had a slight stoop that hadn't been there 5 years ago. I stepped into the house, immediately noticing what I expected. The walls were a shrine to Amanda. Her medical school graduation prominently displayed her wedding photo in the largest frame, various certificates and honors arranged to catch the eye. The single photo of me was from high school, tucked on a side table partially obscured by a vase. Relatives milled around the living room, conversations pausing as I entered. Aunt Patricia, Mother's older sister, swooped in first. "Sylvia, what a surprise to have you back in the fold. Your mother has been beside herself these past years." The message was clear. I had caused pain with my absence, not the treatment that drove me away. I smiled neutrally and moved through the crowd, accepting awkward hugs and fielding questions about Chicago with minimal detail. My mother trailed behind me, interjecting corrections to my answers. "Sylvia's apartment is actually quite small. Nothing like Amanda and Mark's new house in Brookline. She's in advertising, not marketing. Much more entry-level." I breathed deeply, maintaining my composure, reminding myself these were her issues, not mine. Then I saw Amanda enter from the kitchen. My first thought was that Taylor was right. She looked exhausted. Designer clothes hung on a frame that seemed to have lost weight rather than gained it. The perfect smile was in place, but it didn't reach her eyes. When she saw me, something flashed across her face: relief, fear. She quickly composed her features. "Sylvia," she said, approaching for an air kiss. "You made it." "Wouldn't miss it," I replied, studying her. Up close, the concealer under her eyes didn't quite hide the dark circles. "I need to check something in the kitchen," she said suddenly. "Come help me." Curious, I followed her. The moment the swinging door closed behind us, Amanda's perfect posture crumpled. She leaned against the counter, closing her eyes briefly. "Are you okay?" I asked. "Fine, just morning sickness." She glanced toward the door. "Look, Sylvia, I want to make sure we're on the same page. Mom has been waiting for this announcement for years. Please don't cause a scene." I stiffened. "I'm not planning to cause any scene." Amanda looked at me directly for the first time. "I know you and Mom have your issues. But this pregnancy, it hasn't been easy. The doctors aren't even confident it will." She stopped, swallowing hard. "You've had miscarriages," I said gently. Her eyes widened. "How did you—" "Taylor mentioned it." "I'm sorry, Amanda. That must be incredibly difficult." Something in her broke then. She covered her face with perfectly manicured hands. "You have no idea. The fertility treatments, the disappointments, Mark working, constantly losing the department position I worked so hard for." She took a shuddering breath. "And Mom just keeps talking about her future grandchild, like it's guaranteed this time. She's already buying furniture for a nursery at their house." I was stunned by this glimpse behind the perfect facade. Before I could respond, she straightened and wiped her eyes carefully. "Just please, Sylvia, I need this to go well. I need something in my life to not fall apart right now." The vulnerability in her voice was something I'd never heard before. "I know you're angry with Mom. I don't blame you. But can you just keep the peace for this weekend? For me." Before I could answer, the kitchen door swung open and Mother entered. "There you are, Amanda. The Wilsons just arrived. They're dying to hear about the baby. Sylvia, make yourself useful and bring out the cheese plate." Amanda's mask slipped back into place as she dutifully followed Mother out. I stood alone in the kitchen, processing what had just happened. My perfect sister had just shown me she was drowning underneath her perfect life, and had practically begged me not to rock the boat. The problem was I wasn't sure I could make that promise. Not when I was starting to see how Mother's manipulation had damaged both of her daughters, just in different ways. The extended family gathered around the dining room table, a tableau of Midwestern politeness, covering undercurrents of judgment and competition. I was seated between Cousin Roger, who immediately launched into a detailed explanation of his investment portfolio, and Aunt Patricia, who kept patting my hand sympathetically as though I had a terminal illness rather than a successful career and independent life. My mother had orchestrated the seating to keep me far away from her, with Amanda positioned directly to her right, like a crown princess. Father sat at the opposite end of the table, occasionally throwing me encouraging smiles that did little to offset the tension building in my chest. "Chicago must be so dangerous," Aunt Patricia commented while passing the potatoes. "We worry about you living there alone." "It's actually very safe in my neighborhood," I replied, "and I love the energy of the city." Mother interjected from across the table. "Sylvia always did prefer noise and chaos. Amanda and Mark's neighborhood is much more civilized, isn't it, dear?" Amanda nodded automatically, though her eyes remained fixed on her barely touched plate. "So Sylvia, Uncle James boomed, no special fellow in your life yet. Pretty girl like you should be settled down by now." Before I could answer, Mother jumped in. "Sylvia's focused on her career. Not everyone prioritizes family like Amanda." I took a long sip of water, Dr. Fisher's voice in my head, reminding me to breathe before responding. "I'm dating but haven't found the right match yet. I'd rather wait for the right person than settle." "Very modern," Aunt Patricia said in a tone suggesting modern was synonymous with misguided. The interrogation continued through dinner. Every accomplishment I mentioned was minimized or reframed as somehow lacking compared to Amanda's achievements. My condo was just a studio, it wasn't. My director position was entry-level, it definitely wasn't. My friendships were temporary connections rather than Amanda's lifelong community ties. I maintained my composure, answering politely but firmly, refusing to be diminished. I noticed several cousins watching with something like respect in their eyes. Perhaps they had experienced similar treatment from the family matriarchs. After the main course, Mother clinked her glass for attention. "Before dessert, I want to propose a toast." She stood perfectly coiffed and poised. "To family reunions, and particularly to our two daughters being together again." Everyone raised their glasses, and I felt a momentary hope that perhaps she would say something genuinely welcoming. "To Amanda," she continued, "who has built the perfect life through hard work and good choices. Chief resident by 30, married to a brilliant surgeon, and now expecting the blessing of a child. You've always made us proud by following the right path." Amanda's smile looked frozen in place as everyone murmured approval. "And to Sylvia," Mother pivoted her smile, tightening, "who has chosen a different way. Some people need more time to find their direction. We're just glad you've finally recognized the importance of family and returned to make amends." The glass nearly slipped from my hand. There it was, the narrative she had created about my return stated publicly, so everyone would understand my role in her story. To family, everyone chorused, oblivious to the landmine that had just been detonated. I set my glass down carefully, feeling eyes on me waiting for my grateful acknowledgement of Mother's graciousness in welcoming back the prodigal daughter. I opened my mouth to respond when Aunt Patricia, who had been steadily working her way through the wine, spoke up. "Speaking of making different choices, did you hear Ryan Thompson is engaged? Such a nice young man. That could have been you, Sylvia, if you hadn't been so career-focused." My mother seized the opening. "Ryan was such a catch, but some people don't recognize a good thing when they have it. Now he's marrying that lovely Peterson girl from church. Sometimes I think women today don't understand that career success means nothing if you come home to an empty house." I felt heat rising in my face. Ryan and I had broken up because he had cheated, a fact I had never shared with my family out of privacy and dignity. Mother had constructed a completely false narrative that I had chosen career over relationship, reinforcing her preferred story about my life choices. "My house isn't empty, Mom," I said evenly. "It's filled with things that bring me joy and people who respect me." "Friends aren't the same as family," dear Mother replied dismissively. "You'll understand that when you're older. If Amanda had your attitude, she wouldn't have the beautiful life she has now." Amanda flinched visibly but remained silent. "I think Sylvia's life sounds exciting," my younger cousin Brittany ventured. I'm thinking of moving to Chicago after graduation. Mother turned a disapproving look on her. Let's hope you make wiser choices, Brittany. Sylvia's path might seem glamorous, but choices have consequences. There's a reason she's finally come home to apologize for her behavior. The table fell silent. This was the moment. She had stated her false narrative so explicitly that it demanded either confirmation or correction. I haven't come to apologize, Mom. I said, my voice quiet but firm. I came because I was invited and thought perhaps things could be different. Mother's face hardened. There's that attitude problem again. This is exactly why you struggle with relationships, Sylvia. Men don't want a woman who can't admit when she's wrong. I looked around the table, seeing uncomfortable expressions and averted eyes. No one was going to contradict her. Not even my father, who studied his plate intently. Not even Amanda, who looked like she might be sick. If you'll excuse me, I said, placing my napkin beside my plate and standing. I need to use the restroom. I walked calmly from the dining room, maintaining composure, until I closed the bathroom door behind me. Then the panic attack hit. Shallow breathing, racing heart, the room spinning slightly. I gripped the edge of the sink, focusing on the cold porcelain against my palms. I am not that scared little girl anymore, I whispered to my reflection. I am not defined by her expectations or judgment. I ran cold water over my wrists, an old trick Dr. Fisher had taught me. The physical sensation helped ground me in the present, rather than spiraling into emotional memories. I thought about simply leaving, getting in my car, and driving back to Chicago, back to my real life, where I was valued and respected. But that would only reinforce Mother's narrative. Running away would be portrayed as another emotional outburst, more evidence of my instability compared to Amanda's steady perfection. No, I wouldn't run. But I also wouldn't continue participating in my own humiliation. I would set boundaries and speak my truth calmly. Then I would leave with dignity, having finally closed this chapter. I returned to find everyone gathered in the living room, an expectant hush falling as I entered. Amanda stood beside Mother, looking pale and uncomfortable. Just in time, Sylvia Mother announced, Amanda has something wonderful to share. All eyes turned to Amanda, who stood beside our mother with the rigid posture of someone facing a firing squad rather than a loving family. Her hands trembled slightly as she clasped them in front of her. Mark and I, she began, her voice thin, are expecting a baby in February. Applause and congratulations erupted around the room. Mother beamed triumphantly, as though she personally had orchestrated this medical miracle. Father moved forward to hug Amanda, genuine joy on his face. Tell them how you've been decorating the nursery, Mother, prompted loudly. The theme you've chosen is so creative. Amanda swallowed visibly. We haven't started decorating yet. Mother waved this away. Always so cautious, I've already started buying furniture for when the baby stays with us. I found the most beautiful crib at Restoration Hardware. Mom, we talked about this, Amanda said quietly. The doctor said we should wait until after the first trimester to. Nonsense. This time everything will be perfect. You're following all my advice about rest and nutrition, unlike last time when you insisted on working those ridiculous hospital hours. An uncomfortable silence fell over the room. Mother had just publicly referenced Amanda's previous miscarriages, while simultaneously blaming her for them. I watched my sister's face drain of color. The perfect mask she'd maintained for years cracked before my eyes. I can't do this, Amanda whispered. Mother's smile faltered. What was that, dear? Speak up. I said I can't do this anymore. Amanda's voice rose, startling everyone. I'm 13 weeks pregnant and terrified every single day that I'll lose this baby too. The doctors aren't even confident the pregnancy will succeed because of complications from the last miscarriage. Mother stepped toward her, clearly intending to cut off this unscripted moment. Amanda, this isn't the time to... When is the time, Mom? When have you ever let me talk about how I actually feel instead of how you want me to feel? Tears spilled down Amanda's cheeks. I didn't want to announce the pregnancy yet. I'm not ready to celebrate. I'm scared and exhausted and so tired of pretending everything is perfect. The room was dead silent now, relatives frozen in shock at seeing the golden child break down. My marriage is struggling because Mark and I barely see each other. I lost the department position I worked for because I took too much time off for fertility treatments. The last miscarriage nearly broke me. Amanda was fully crying now, years of suppressed emotion pouring out. She turned to me suddenly. And I've been so jealous of you, Sylvia. You had the courage to leave to build your own life. I've been trapped in this perfect image for so long, I don't even know who I am anymore. Mother's face had transformed from shocked to furious. She grabbed Amanda's arm. That's enough. You're hormonal and not thinking clearly. We don't air private matters in public. Let go of her, Mom, I said, stepping forward. Mother ignored me, focusing on damage control. Amanda is just overwhelmed with pregnancy hormones, she announced to the stunned relatives. Mark's surgical schedule and her own medical career are very demanding. But everything is wonderful, really. She's just being dramatic. I'm not being dramatic, Amanda said, pulling her arm free. I'm being honest for the first time in my life. Mother's expression hardened into something ugly. After everything I've done for you, the strings I pulled to get you into the right schools, the connections I made with the right families, the image I've helped you maintain. And this is how you repay me, by having a public meltdown and embarrassing the entire family. I watched in stunned disbelief as Mother turned on her golden child, using the same tactics she'd used on me for years. The criticism, the guilt, the public humiliation. Amanda was experiencing it all now, having finally stepped out of her assigned role. You've always been so ungrateful, Mother continued, her voice rising. Do you think you'd have any of this without my guidance? Your father and I sacrificed everything to give you the perfect foundation. The least you could do is show some appreciation instead of this childish display. I looked around the room at the uncomfortable relatives, at my father's helpless expression, at Amanda's tears. In that moment, I saw with perfect clarity what I hadn't fully understood before. This wasn't about me or Amanda. It had never been about us as individuals. We were just characters in Mother's story, valued only when we played our assigned roles to her satisfaction. I had spent years in therapy working through my feelings of inadequacy, believing they stemmed from being less favored than Amanda. But watching her experience the same treatment the moment she diverged from Mother's script, I realized the truth. Neither of us had ever been loved unconditionally. We had only been valued for how well we fulfilled Mother's vision of the daughters she deserved. The realization brought a strange sense of peace. This wasn't my burden to carry anymore. I didn't need Mother's approval to validate my worth, and neither did Amanda. As Mother continued berating Amanda, I made my decision. I would stand up not just for myself, but for my sister too. Not out of anger or revenge, but from a place of clarity and compassion for both of us, as survivors of the same emotional manipulation. I moved to Amanda's side and took her hand. She looked at me with surprise through her tears. It's okay, I said quietly. You don't have to do this alone anymore. Mother paused mid-tirade, staring at our clasped hands with narrowed eyes. The room held its collective breath, waiting for her next move. What exactly do you think you're doing, Sylvia? She asked, voice dangerously quiet. I took a deep breath, centering myself in the moment. I'm supporting my sister, something I should have done years ago. Your sister doesn't need support. She needs to pull herself together and stop this embarrassing display. Mother turned to the gathered relatives with a tight laugh. My daughters have always had a flair for drama. Too many young adult novels growing up, I suppose. I recognized the tactic immediately. Minimize, dismiss, deflect. Make it seem like we were being childish rather than expressing legitimate feelings. I had watched her do it my entire life, and had finally learned to recognize it for what it was, a form of gaslighting. This isn't drama, Mom, I said calmly. This is honesty, something that's been in short supply in this family for a very long time. I turned to address the room, still holding Amanda's hand. I didn't come here to apologize or make amends. I came because I thought after 5 years things might have changed. I can see now they haven't. Here we go, Mother sighed dramatically. Sylvia always did love being the center of attention. No, Mom. That's your role, I replied evenly. You've spent years crafting a narrative where Amanda is the perfect daughter, and I'm the disappointment. You've pitted us against each other our entire lives. never allowing us to simply be sisters who support each other. I felt Amanda squeeze my hand, giving me strength to continue. I spent years in therapy working through the damage caused by never feeling good enough in this house. I thought it was because I couldn't compete with Amanda. But watching you turn on her the moment she steps out of the role you assigned her, I finally understand. Neither of us was ever allowed to be human, to make mistakes, to have our own dreams that didn't align with your vision. Mother's face flushed with anger. This is exactly why we stopped inviting you to family gatherings. You always find a way to make everything about your grievances. Some of us learn to be grateful for what we have instead of constantly complaining. I am grateful, I said. I'm grateful for the life I've built. I'm grateful for friends who love me as I am. I'm grateful for my therapist who helped me understand that I don't need your approval to have worth. Very dramatic, Aunt Patricia interjected, clearly, trying to diffuse the situation. Diane, perhaps we should serve dessert now. Mother seized the lifeline. Excellent idea. Sylvia, if you're finished with your performance, perhaps you could help in the kitchen. I'm not finished, I said, my voice steady. And I'm not performing. I'm setting boundaries. I won't be manipulated, diminished, or pitted against my sister anymore. I won't participate in maintaining a false image of perfection at the cost of our actual well-being. Several relatives shifted uncomfortably. Uncle James cleared his throat. The girl has a point, Diane. Family should be about support, not competition. Mother's head whipped toward him, shocked at this betrayal from an unexpected quarter. I've always thought you were too hard on Sylvia, Aunt Patricia added, surprisingly, her earlier wine consumption perhaps loosening her tongue. Not everyone has to follow the same path to be successful. Mother's carefully constructed narrative was crumbling as more relatives nodded in agreement. Her face hardened as she realized she was losing control of her audience. I've sacrificed everything for this family, she said, voice trembling with anger. If you all want to side with ungrateful children who throw tantrums when they don't get their way, then perhaps I should leave my own party. She waited, clearly, expecting protestations and apologies. When none came, her expression shifted to one of genuine shock. The silence was broken by my father's voice, quiet but clear, from where he stood beside the fireplace. No one wants you to leave, Diane. But perhaps it's time we all listened instead of just talking. All eyes turned to him in surprise. My father, who had remained on the sidelines of family conflict for decades, had finally stepped into the arena. I've failed both my daughters, he said, looking directly at Amanda and me. I saw what was happening over the years. The comparison, the criticism, the impossible standards. And I said nothing because it was easier to retreat to my office than confront the problem. He walked slowly to stand beside us. I told myself I was keeping the peace, but really I was being a coward. I'm sorry, girls. You deserved a father who protected you, and I wasn't that man. Mother stared at him as though he'd grown a second head. James, what has gotten into you? You're making it sound like I've been some sort of monster instead of a mother who wanted the best for her children. I know you love them, Diane, he said gently. But there's a difference between wanting the best for your children and demanding they be the best to earn your love. His words hung in the air, simple but profound. I felt tears welling in my eyes, not from pain this time, but from the validation of finally having someone in the family acknowledge the dynamic that had shaped my childhood. Mother's face crumpled, her carefully maintained composure finally breaking. How dare you? After everything I've sacrificed. She looked around the room, finding no allies among the silent relatives. Fine. If I'm such a terrible mother, you can all enjoy the party without me. She stormed toward the door, clearly expecting someone to stop her. When no one did, she paused, hand on the doorknob, and looked back at us with genuine confusion in her eyes. I don't understand, she said, voice smaller now. I gave you both everything. The best schools, the best opportunities, the best guidance. Why isn't that enough? What more could you possibly want from me? The vulnerability in her question caught me off guard. For the first time, I glimpsed something beneath my mother's controlling exterior. Her own insecurity, her own desperate need for validation through her children's achievements. We wanted you to love us for who we are, Mom, Amanda said softly. Not for what we accomplish or how well we fit into your vision of the perfect family. Mother stood frozen, her hand still on the doorknob, something like realization dawning in her eyes. I don't know how to do that, she whispered so quietly, I almost didn't hear. For the first time in my life, I saw my mother not as the imposing judgmental figure of my childhood, but as a deeply flawed, insecure woman who had likely never experienced unconditional love herself. I moved back home after college to take care of your mother when she was sick, she said almost to herself. She criticized everything I did. Nothing was ever good enough. The house wasn't clean enough. The meals weren't prepared properly. I wasn't attentive enough. She trailed off, seemingly lost in painful memories. The parallel was unmistakable. She had parented as she had been parented, perpetuating a cycle of conditional love and impossible standards. It's not too late to learn a different way, Mom, I said gently. She looked at me with genuine confusion. What do you mean? I mean, therapy helped me understand these patterns. It could help you too. I stepped toward her cautiously. Breaking the cycle is possible. It's hard work, but worth it. You want me to tell some stranger our private family business? She sounded scandalized, but less dismissive than I expected. I want you to have the chance to heal, just like I did, I replied. We all deserve that. Mother looked at me for a long moment, then at Amanda, then around the room at the relatives, watching this unexpected turn of events with rapt attention. I need some air, she said finally, and stepped outside, closing the door quietly behind her. The tension in the room dissipated slightly. Amanda squeezed my hand. Thank you, she whispered. I've never been brave enough to stand up to her. It wasn't about bravery, I replied. It was about finally understanding that her approval isn't the measure of our worth. Father put his arms around both of us. I'm proud of you girls, and I promise to do better from now on. As relatives began talking again, some approaching us with supportive words, I felt something shift inside me. The anger and hurt I'd carried for years hadn't disappeared, but it had transformed into something else. A mix of understanding, compassion, and firm resolve to maintain healthier boundaries going forward. Mother returned 20 minutes later, eyes slightly red but composure restored. She didn't apologize or acknowledge the confrontation directly, but when Aunt Patricia suggested serving dessert, she merely nodded instead of taking command as usual. It was a small change, but perhaps the beginning of something new. As we moved awkwardly through the rest of the evening, I realized that true reconciliation, if it ever came, would be a long and complicated journey. But for the first time, I believed it might be possible. 3 months after the reunion, I sat at a cafe in Boston halfway between Vermont and Chicago waiting for Amanda. We had spoken regularly since that day, slowly building a relationship as sisters rather than competitors. Today would be our first in-person meeting, without the family audience. I spotted her entering the cafe looking healthier than she had at the reunion. The haunted look in her eyes had diminished, and her smile seemed genuine when she saw me. Sorry I'm late, she said, sliding into the chair across from me. Traffic was terrible. No problem. I ordered you a decaf latte. I gestured to the mug waiting for her. How are you feeling? Amanda placed a hand on her now visible baby bump. Better. The morning sickness finally stopped, and we had an anatomy scan last week. Everything looks good. That's wonderful, I said sincerely. I've been seeing a therapist, she confided after taking a sip of her coffee. Dr. Levine. She's helping me work through the anxiety about the pregnancy and everything else. That's brave of you, I replied. Therapy was life-changing for me. It's hard, Amanda admitted. Unpacking all the ways I let Mom define my worth, realizing how much of my life has been driven by seeking her approval. But it's helping. Mark and I are communicating better too. I finally told him I need him to be more present, that his constant work schedule was making me feel abandoned. How did he take it? Better than I expected. He admitted he throws himself into work because he felt helpless when we lost the previous pregnancies. He's trying now, coming home earlier, actually talking about his feelings. She smiled ruefully. We're both works in progress. What about the department head position, I asked. I've decided not to pursue it for now. The politics and hours would be too much with a newborn. Instead, I'm developing a research proposal about improving maternal care protocols. something I'm genuinely passionate about, not just something to make Mom proud. I felt a surge of admiration for my sister. That sounds amazing. You're making hard choices based on what's right for you, not what looks impressive to others. I learned that from you, she said quietly. Watching you stand up for yourself at the reunion. It was like someone finally gave me permission to question the path I've been on. We sat in comfortable silence for a moment, a new understanding between us. How are Mom and Dad? I asked finally. Amanda sighed. Dad calls me regularly now, just to check in, not to compare notes on accomplishments. It's nice. He's making an effort. And? Mom. She's. Amanda searched for the right words, trying in her way. She still makes comments about my weight gain during pregnancy and sends articles about keeping your husband interested when you're expecting. She rolled her eyes. But when I set boundaries now, she actually respects them. Most of the time. Is she getting help? Dad convinced her to attend one counseling session with a marriage therapist. She hated it, but has gone back twice. Baby steps. I nodded, not surprised. Change would come slowly, if at all, for our mother. I got a letter from her last week. Amanda raised her eyebrows. Really? What did it say? It was unexpected. She acknowledged specific things she'd done that hurt me growing up. No excuses or justifications. She said she's trying to understand why she parents the way she does. That's huge for her, Amanda said. I know. I wrote back with clear boundaries about what a future relationship might look like. I was kind, but firm. Amanda smiled. Look at us setting healthy boundaries like functioning adults. Speaking of functioning adults, I said, changing the subject, I've been seeing someone. Really? Tell me everything. His name is David. We've been taking it slow, prioritizing honest communication. He's a graphic designer I met through a work project. Very talented, very kind. Have you told Mom? I laughed. Not yet. I'm not subjecting him to the family until I'm absolutely sure he can handle it. Smart woman Amanda grinned. We spent the afternoon talking like the friends we had never been allowed to be growing up. When it was time to leave, Amanda hugged me tightly. Thank you, she whispered, for seeing me when I was drowning, for standing up when I couldn't. I hugged her back carefully, mindful of her pregnant belly. That's what sisters are supposed to do. 2 months later, I hosted a small dinner party in my Chicago condo. Jenna was there, with her boyfriend, 2 colleagues. I'd grown close to David, and surprisingly, Amanda and Mark, who had flown in for the weekend. As we sat around my dining table sharing wine, sparkling cider for Amanda, and laughing over stories, I looked at the life I had created. My home was filled with people who valued me for exactly who I was. The painful confrontation at the reunion had been a turning point not just for me, but for my entire family. My mother and I were taking small steps toward a new kind of relationship. She had sent a birthday card that, for the first time ever, didn't include any backhanded compliments or references to what I could have been. My father and I spoke regularly, both of us working to build the relationship we should have had all along. As for Amanda and me, we were discovering what it meant to be sisters, without competition or comparison. Her pregnancy was progressing well, and I was looking forward to being Aunt Sylvia to a niece or nephew who would never be subjected to the toxic dynamics we had endured. A toast, I said, raising my glass, to authentic relationships and the courage to be imperfectly ourselves. Everyone clinked glasses, and Amanda caught my eye across the table, a look of genuine happiness on her face that I had rarely seen growing up. Later, as Amanda and Mark prepared to leave for their hotel, she pulled me aside. I've been thinking about what you said at the reunion, she said quietly, about how neither of us was ever allowed to be human or make mistakes. I don't want that for my child. Your baby is lucky to have you as a mother, I replied. You've done so much work to break the cycle. She squeezed my hand. Thank you for showing me how to be brave. After everyone had left, I stood at my window overlooking the Chicago skyline, reflecting on the journey of the past months. The pain hadn't disappeared entirely. Healing isn't linear or simple. But I had learned that standing up for yourself doesn't always mean walking away. Sometimes it means staying and demanding a different kind of relationship. Sometimes it means setting boundaries with compassion, understanding that hurt people hurt people. Most importantly, I had learned that true family, whether blood relations or chosen connections, is built on acceptance and respect, not performance and comparison. The journey to self-worth is the most important one we take, and sometimes by valuing ourselves, we create space for others to heal too. What did you think of Sylvia's journey? Have you ever had to stand up to toxic family dynamics or set difficult boundaries with loved ones? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. And if this resonated with you, please hit the like button, subscribe to hear more stories, and share with someone who might need to hear this message today. Thank you for listening, and remember, you deserve to be loved for who you are, not for what you achieve.